We're not only human. And we have songs where people sing, "You're only human." And I say, no, you're not. We're not. We're souls now. And that's what I came to know as I started to sense other beings in my meditation and engage them.
Welcome to Living in the Miracle Zone. This is the place to be if you want to live in the flow of synchronicities and miracles in your everyday life. And I'm your host, Marcy Shimoff. I'm a #1 New York Times bestselling author, a featured teacher in The Secret, and the creator of the worldwide program, Your Year of Miracles. And I have spent my life studying happiness and miracles. And in this broadcast, we bring to you extraordinary miracle stories that will inspire you. And we bring you groundbreaking miracle tools that will show you how to live your most miraculous life. And it's my heartfelt intention that we all have a fabulous time together today. I know that we're going to. So welcome to the Miracle Zone. And today we are diving into true transformation, awakening, living a miraculous life with one of the women that I have most admired over the last years. She's someone I met when she taught for your Year of Miracles program for one of my guest expert sessions, and she had me at hello. Her name is Suzanne Giesemann. And Suzanne, welcome to today's episode.
Oh, you just made my heart burst there, Marcy. Thank you. It's great to be here.
Well, I just have to say, Suzanne, what I so have loved about you is that you are so grounded and so real and so no baloney, no tricks and mirrors, the total real deal. And you're living it. And I can feel it every time I'm around you. So let me share with everybody a little bit about your background, and then I'll dive into asking you some questions. So Suzanne is an author. She is the teacher of The Awakened Way, a path to knowing who you are and why you're here. She's been included on the Watkins list of 100 most spiritually influential living people. That's pretty amazing to be considered one of the 100 most spiritually influential living people. She is, and get this, she is a former U.S. Navy commander who served as a commanding officer and an aide to the chairman of the Joint Chiefs of Staff. And these days, she shares 21st century spirituality, which merges the latest scientific understanding about consciousness with ancient spiritual wisdom. And Suzanne's YouTube channel has over 10 million views. And what Suzanne really does is she helps people make the shift to living a divinely guided life. I have been witness to that. I've felt my own shifts from her great wisdom. I've also had the great blessing of being on her podcast, The Messages of Hope, which is a fabulous podcast. You've got to check it out. And Suzanne, just thank you. Thank you for how you show up in the world. And thank you for having your path cross mine in this lifetime.
Well, like attracts like, magnetic energy you just radiate it to the world. Happiness, joy. If we can help others to feel that and share it with them, that's what makes it all worthwhile, isn't it?
That's what we're here for. So, well, you have quite an amazing story. I mean, truly, your story is one of transformation. I'm sure that 25 years ago, you never imagined that you would be doing what it is you're doing today. So it would be great to hear your story of transformation and how you've come to live a really miraculous life.
You bet. One thing you didn't mention in the biography is what I often refer to as the M word. And that is that I'm also known as a medium because I help people connect with their loved ones who have passed. I don't say that right up front to a lot of people because they would immediately just dismiss me and say, oh, that's woo-woo stuff, and she's not worth listening to. But I know that it's my background, that whole Navy commander, aide to the chairman background, that makes people at least stay a couple minutes and say, oh, maybe I can trust her. If she can believe that the spirit world is real, maybe I can too. And that is the greatest gift of my background, but it's definitely a 180-degree turn in career fields. unfortunately, it came about as the result of my stepdaughter Susan's death. She was struck and killed by lightning in 2006. I had never seen a spirit, Marcy. I didn't know for sure there is a greater reality. I only hoped there was when Susan died. When I saw her body at the funeral, that's when I knew in my heart that death is not the end of what we call me. And I set my new mission to connect with Susan. Little did I know that in my practice of daily sitting and saying, Susan, let me sense you, I was training my mind to be more quiet. I was opening myself to expanded states of consciousness, and over the years, opened myself to all kinds of adventures in consciousness that I never expected, including connecting with Susan and many others.
And so I just would love to go back to that time at the funeral where you said you had this knowing, this experience. What was that?
Oh,
and you had not meditated before. That hadn't been any of it came out of the blue.
Well, the knowing, it may spark, my statement of this may spark in anybody who's ever seen the lifeless body of a loved one shortly after they pass, the transformation in how they look and feel. And I'm not talking about the skin, I'm talking about energetically, is so different from the people we know and love that's what caused me to look at that lifeless body that was Susan and say, that's not Susan. It's not just like somebody's lying there sleeping. She was completely transformed. And that's when I knew in my heart, there is some aspect of these bodies that actually gives it life. So what is that? And of course, we know, I didn't know at the time, that's the soul. That's spirit that's breathing us. And so now I know we are all souls here and now. We don't become souls when we pass from the body. And we can all learn to make the shift to have soul awareness and find peace and guidance and insights and eternal life.
It's really quite a shift from probably a very linear kind of way that you had thought before in the military to opening up to this whole other realm. And I'm curious what happened when you would sit and just be quiet and ask to connect. What transformed for you, and how did this change your life?
What happened when I first sat, Marcy, is I fell asleep every day for about 3 weeks until the body realized this is not a nap. We don't usually take naps. So they were celebrating, the cells were saying, oh, we get to rest. No, we have a mission. What transpired was my intuition increased. I guess I was always a little intuitive because I knew exactly what my boss needed as his aide. And that's why he chose me, because he could tell I was looking ahead all the time. I didn't call it intuition. Now I know I was tuning in to the present moment. But the intuition came back online full force. And then psychic abilities arose. I was able to know what people were thinking. It's to this day, it really frightens my husband sometimes. Right? But there are then moments when I'll say, hey, I'm not psychic all the time. I can't read your mind. Talk to me. Two levels to us, the human side. But as I say in my book, The Awakened Way, we're not only human. And we have songs where people sing, you're only human. And I say, no, you're not. We're not. We're souls now. And that's what I came to know as I started to sense other beings in my meditation and engage them. Not just say, whoa, what was that? Instead, it was, who are you and why are you here? And we got into conversations.
I mean, this is just such an extraordinary story. And what I know is you have used that to be able to show others how to awaken themselves. And I have to say to you, huge congratulations, because today, the day of this release of this podcast, is the birth of your new book. The Awakened Way, Making the Shift to a Divinely Guided Life. So I know what a huge feat it is to write a book. Congratulations. I applaud you. And I encourage everybody to go get The Awakened Way. We're going to be talking about this and what it really means, because I think when you speak about The Awakened Way, I think it's very similar to what we call living in the miracle zone. So what do you mean by the awakened way, and how does it lead to living a more miraculous life?
The awakened way is really understanding what I said earlier, that you're not only human. Number two, you're part of one big web of connections, not just with each other here, but with the non-physical world. And once you start recognizing that, then the miracles that you show everybody about become commonplace. You know how they work, you expect them, you see them. And the third part is you come to know that love is the healing and creative force that's bringing us all together. So you live your life with that as your foundational awareness. And the book is filled with tools of how to remember who we are, how to access the greater reality. It's in two parts, with the foundational information to get past the BS you're living with now, and that's belief system. And then the practical tools are part two. So I'm really excited, Marcy, because it's actually my 14th book, but it's the first time where I put all of the how-tos into one place.
Oh my goodness, your 14th book. That's amazing. I hope that you're getting a lot of other world guidance on writing these.
Oh, no doubt. I go back and even this book, I read some of the pages. And when I was narrating it for Audible, it just kind of stunned me, because I feel that the energy in that, and I know that it's otherworldly, as I'm sure you know that you're channeling sometimes when you're teaching and sharing and leading your workshops. That's when we make the shift to merge with our higher self in awareness, and it comes out so much better than anything we could do before we make that shift.
Yeah, and it's really the state in which we are meant to be living. It's the purpose, I believe, of our being alive, is to make this shift to living in our higher state of consciousness, or in that state of this more of a state of oneness. How do you suggest that we connect in with our higher consciousness?
Well, I have what I call the 3 E's of living the awakened way. And that's number one, educate yourself about who you really are and the greater reality. And there's so many ways to do that in your podcast, and mine are some of those ways. The internet makes so much available to us that was not available in the past. So you can watch thousands of videos of people who have had near-death experiences and understand how very real the greater reality is. So educate yourself. Number two, this is huge. Experience it for yourself, because we can talk for hours, can't we? And share stories laced with evidence that leaves no doubt that we are connected to something greater. But until you have the personal experience, it's just theory. So the book also has lots of tools about how to have those experiences of expanded states of awareness.
Yeah, that to me is where the rubber meets the road. Right there is, you got to have the experience. And then your third.
The third is engage whatever higher consciousness shows up in those experiences. So I already mentioned, you say, who are you? Why are you here? But these things don't just happen in meditation. You get to the point where throughout your day, you say, wow, this isn't working for me. And you shift, and you have guides and helpers and loved ones across the veil. And you say, what's my best move right now? Guide me, because this is not working for me. I'm hitting a wall. So you engage your helpers throughout the day until it just becomes the awakened way, your way of living.
So I'm curious about who you're engaging. To me, there's all kinds of levels of engagement. Are you engaging your own personal helpers and guides? Are you engaging more universal helpers and guides? Or are you engaging your own higher self, your own just pure connection to source?
And the answer is yes, yes, and yes. Because ultimately, why I spent the first half of the book with the foundational information is all of us are manifestations of one source, one sea of consciousness. You could call it one God. It's all love. That's the healing creative force I was talking about. And that source expresses itself as archangels and angels and spirit guides and your loved ones and your highest self and you here in a body. So oftentimes I'll say, does it matter what level you're connecting? Is it helpful? Is it healing? Would it have come to you if you hadn't paused, realized you are part of one wholeness, and asked something beyond this limited, constricted human viewpoint?
So do you then try to distinguish when you are communicating or asking for guidance or support? Are you distinguishing yourself who that is?
Sometimes, but not always. If I'm doing a reading from bringing through someone else's loved ones, I know my dear friend Brenda Bowman Baker, who I knew in human form, is now my mediumship guide across the veil. I have irrefutable evidence that she is now working with me. So in a reading, I'll say, hey, Brenda, help me out here. I'll say it silently, and I hear her voice, and she helps me if I need it, but usually she just hangs back. If I want to talk to my stepdaughter, I just go to the heart shift and say, Susan, what can you tell me about this issue I'm dealing with your dad? Or I'll just go even higher to my guide, Sanaya, who have given me thousands, probably close to 6,000 now, daily messages that I share in an app called The Awakened Way. They are always with me, just like everybody watching and listening has spirit guides, a very popular topic. We all want to know that we have like a genie in a bottle who's guiding us. We do. I couldn't tell you what Sanaya or my guides look like. I don't see them, but do they prove their presence over and over again? So it just the various layers. Sometimes I go direct. Sometimes I just say, whoever has the best answer for me, help me out here.
And just because someone is on the other side, that doesn't necessarily mean that they're wise or have knowledge. Is that right? I mean,
that's absolutely correct. And Brenda is the first one to say, hey, that question's beyond my pay grade.
Well, at least she's willing to admit, and she's able to say, which may be different when we're in human form. We're less likely to admit, I don't know that, as you know.
Right. Yes. Yeah.
So why is seeing from the eyes of the soul, as you speak about, why is that so key to living a joy-filled or a miraculous life?
It's very important because we have this thing called a brain, and it is beautifully programmed to live in this reality, but it is limited by design. If we were able to tune into all of the energy and information that we're swimming in right now, we would experience chaos. But we can bypass these filters with intention by shifting and training the mind to be still. And from that higher, less constricted state of awareness, now we're accessing more of those signals where information that can help us, where beings who can guide us are now accessible because we have used our free will and trained ourselves to access those signals. It's phenomenal.
And so you're seeing in a different way. You're learning a new way of seeing.
That's exactly right. And the word seeing can actually lead us astray. I call it seeing with the eyes of the soul, but I was talking to a friend who is an energy intuitive, and I said, you say you see people's auras and their energy. I'm so envious because I don't. And she said, oh, Suzanne, that's just a term. I see it in my mind's eye. I know it. I feel it. And I said, oh my God, that's what we do as mediums. Yet we say seeing with the eyes of the soul. And yet, Marcy, I absolutely see images in the mind's eye given to me from spirits that are not objective, not out there, solid.
And some people see more visually, some people see more auditorily, some people see more through feeling, kinesthetic, or just a knowing. So any of those work for people, right?
So when we say seeing with the eyes of the soul, what we really mean is knowing, feeling, seeing without using the physical senses.
Yeah. Beautiful, beautiful. All right. So you love practical. I love practical. It's where we said the rubber meets the road. Would you share with us a couple of practical things that we can do to really see from the eyes of the soul, to maintain that soul perspective?
Yes. Start trusting that you have a connection and be playful like a child. trust that the spirit world senses you. And when you experience a coincidence or a synchronicity that your heart just knows came from beyond you, perhaps from a loved one, put them to the test. And you ask, what are you going to send me? What sign are you going to give me to show me this was you interacting with me, or this was you who put that sign in my face? And just pause, and a thought or an image will come into your mind. Thank them from your heart, and then just be open. I have had hundreds and hundreds of examples of beautiful validations from spirit. So many times it will come to me by words in a book that I'm led to just that night. I'll be in bed reading before we turn the light out, and I'll go, my husband is so used to me gasping. He doesn't even ask anymore. What? Can I share a magical one?
I would love, absolutely.
From my book, Wolf's Message, the young man also killed by lightning like my stepdaughter. I'd been going around the country giving presentations based on Wolf's visits to me after he died. And we were heading back home from giving one of those presentations. And I sensed this young man named Wolf blend his energy with me. I'm driving our RV. And I said, oh my gosh, Wolf is here. As I'm driving, he said, you need to put this presentation into a book. And I said, oh, not another book. I'm just finished writing one. And he said, no, put it in a book. And I said, well, it's not that big of a story. It wouldn't be that big of a book. It would probably end up being kind of small, like those books by, who's the guy that wrote Tuesdays with Maury?
Yeah, Mitch Albom.
Yes, I know you know. And I said, if I'm supposed to write a book, even if it's a little one, I need a really big sign from you, Wolf. And it needs to be in the next day or so. So we get home 2 hours later and go to the mailbox because we've been gone for days. And there is a package for me from Wolf's parents in the mail. A gift, unexpected. I get in the car, open the package. I gasped so loud my husband hit the brakes. What is it? I said, I'm sorry. It's a package from Wolf's parents. It's the latest book from Mitch Albom.
Oh my God. Oh, I love signs. I love how you listened. So that's the difference. You listened.
But doesn't it just show you that Wolf already knew what was coming?
Yes.
He probably put the thought in my mind to ask for a sign, right? He knows his dad and his stepmom have put this in my mailbox, send it to me. I just see the spirit world often going like this is going to be good.
So I hope this is okay that I ask you. You're so wonderful that I can ask you personal questions about the courage that you had to speak about this. That's so woo-woo that in some ways people would consider that from your background in the military to this. How did you get the courage to speak about this? And I ask that personally because I can say I've more and more lately had experiences of very clear connections with the other world. And I feel nervous to share those things.
Yes.
Who knows whether it's sort of past life fears of what happened when we did those things or, stories of them, but it's a deep fear for people. So how did you have the boldness and courage to do this?
Well, that's our egos that worry, what will people think?
Mm-hmm.
And when you know in your heart what is real, what is helpful, it really doesn't matter anymore. I went to a medium with my husband after Susan died, and she brought through Susan with evidence that changed our lives. And now I get that kind of evidence and have had dozens of people say, your work saved my life, because they just wanted to join their loved ones across the veil. They were ready to leave the planet. And once you know the healing effects of that, and you have no doubt, like I do, in your heart and your mind that this is real, I just can't help but share it with people. The one thing, though, Marcy, is I don't take on skeptics. I don't deliberately bring up the topic. If they question me, I'll share evidence. If they want to take it, okay. If they don't, or they get in my face, I just love them. That's it.
And that is so beautiful. And what it points to is that you are beyond the ego. Beyond, in that sense, you're beyond caring about what other people are going to think. You don't have any agenda to push it on anybody. It's not, you don't have a personal attachment to how it's received. I would love to hear from you what your advice is to everyone, whether or not they're going to be out there doing this kind of work, which many people are not, except for perhaps in their own life. But in our own lives, how do we get beyond that care about what other people think of us?
You have the personal experience that you are love in expression. Love in full expression is my word that becomes the acronym LIFE. Love in full expression.
Oh, I love it. Love in full expression.
Yeah. So to have that experience, try another tool from the Awaken Way book, and that's my sip of the divine. Just 3 minutes a day of sitting quietly to ask some higher being, what is it I need to know now? So right away, we have no excuse that you don't have enough time, because everybody takes 5 minutes to make and sip coffee. SIP is an acronym for sit in peace. So I know you can sit in peace for 3 minutes and ask a question like having a genie in a bottle. And as you watch and listen for the answer to what you don't know, but you hope will come from higher consciousness, you start to observe how the mind works. And that is training for seeing with the eyes of the soul. You've shifted from the experiencer to the observer, and you start to notice, look how many of my thoughts are just the same. Look how many of these thoughts are beating myself up. You let them go because you're still waiting for your answer. What do I need to know now? And sooner or later, you're going to get an answer. You're going to hear it, and you're going to go, whoa, that's helpful. That's really timely. Who is this? And you start the dialogue, and soon 3 minutes won't be enough. In the meantime, you're sitting in peace, and that carries over throughout the day. And the more you do this, you're going to notice in those gaps when your story fades away, what's left? This beautiful state of just being, the I am. Everything else is story. When you come to know I am, this is love. And that changes everything.
Well, that will change the planet. Each person living that way, that is the only thing I think that will ultimately change the planet. It's a different approach than the military approach.
Oh, a little.
It's the soul approach.
It is. And if I could add just a really important point to that is coming to know that even if it's just a few seconds of bliss, just peace with no story, then throughout the day, when you feel your ego kick in, the fear of what other people will think, when you're stressing about anything, it feels so different from that pure peace that you notice it. And now you can drop back into that state because you're doing it 3 minutes every day. And this takes over, and the love becomes who you are in expression, not just at the fundamental level.
And what I so appreciate about this is how very practical it is. Nobody can say, I don't have 3 minutes. And if people say, oh, well, I can sit for 3 minutes and I'm not going to have any experience. And I imagine you would say, try it. What would you say to somebody that says, I've done that every day for a month, and all I have is my laundry list of to-dos that come up, or, a recurring conversation or whatever?
Then go back to the basics and simply see all of those thoughts in the laundry list as clouds covering the blue sky of awareness that's here. And you're just watching the clouds and letting them go. Watch the next cloud, let it go. Only engage when it's an answer to your question or a being that surprises you in a wonderful way and you want to engage. As long as you're doing that, you see your laundry list and you go, just popping up, let it go. This is the training. I guarantee you will ultimately come to realizations and experience peace. They may not be what you expect. That's the biggie. we have these expectations of bells and whistles and seeing archangels. This is just the training ground and stepping stones. Life is a process. It never ends. That's why I'm so excited as a medium. My abilities just keep getting better, and it's the same for everybody. We're all works in progress.
Yep. Works in progress. I think we should all just wear a little sign across our chest. Work in progress. So what do you say to people when they say, how do I distinguish whether this is just my own thought or it's, really the wisdom coming through?
One of the most common questions. And now that you're sitting in peace 3 minutes a day and you're noticing your thoughts and you notice how they feel, it becomes very obvious when it's not your own thought and when it feels different. And then you engage.
Mm-hmm.
So even a thought that says you're so very loved may sound like your thought, but it comes with this, wow, in the past, I would never have said that to myself because I didn't think I was worthy. Where did that come from? It comes from making that shift.
So would you describe how you feel perhaps throughout a given day? Because I think it would be a great description of living in the miracle zone. And how is that different than 25 years ago, how you used to live?
I've never been more busy in my life. I have never had such massive tasks in my life. I could give in to the stress, but I am so divinely guided moment by moment. It's absolutely stunning. The guides just say, do this next. There's a knowing to do that next. I go from one thing to the next. And just earlier, I was rushing to the shower because I had to teach a class online. And I was like, oh my God, and then I have Marcy's interview. And I stopped and I heard, but you love it, don't you? And I laughed and I said, I actually do, or we wouldn't be doing this. So that's, I still get stressed, but I pause, breathe, and then there's the guidance. I see the magic in the moments. I still have my human moments, but I never forget who I am. I always know that peace is right here. I can drop into that. So when, for example, my husband pushes my buttons, I know that that's for my greater good. And I look at that and I might get a little bit, act a little human in response. And then I'll take that into meditation and say, what was that all about? What is it I still have to learn here? And it's joyous, if not always pleasant. I've definitely learned that the pain is part of the fullness. I used to push it away, but now it's just like, wow, I came here for all of this, the bumps and the smooth parts.
And would you say there's an overall feeling of it being love-filled, more in the flow, the bumps and the non-bumps? And
we have this Awaken Way community, people that attend my monthly webinars, people, the comments on Facebook. I know there can't be too many Facebook groups and pages that are so loving and accepting and open, and nobody's saying snarky things.
Yes.
It's just the energy. Well, when I go to, I lead some cruises now and retreats, and the staff of these events say, your group is so nice. It's because, like you and I said at the beginning, we attract this happy energy, this loving energy. And that's what we want to send like ripples out to the world. I know that.
And my experience is the more the merrier. It's exponential. In our miracles community, we have thousands and thousands of people, as you have in the Awakened Way community, and the energy just builds. Each person adds in exponentially to that energy, and that's really what we're here for. So I've got one last question for you that often people will say, how can you experience love and joy and beauty and life being so wonderful while there is all this suffering on the planet? And I would love your perspective on joy and love and flow and ease and living in that way in the midst of the suffering on the planet.
This is a little tagline to the book, The Awakened Way. There must be a better way. There is the awakened way. And as you ask that question, the brain is programmed so that immediately most humans would say, oh, how am I going to come up with a good answer to that? But I'm so much a team with my guides, who we call Sanaya, that I never stress. I just shift just like that right there. And I say, what's the better answer than what I would come up with? And they just say, do not despair. You are never alone, and you are not only human. It is only when you think you are only human that you give in to fear and helplessness and hopelessness. But as you expand your consciousness and come to know that you cannot be separated from the greater realms, you realize that this earthly experience is exactly that, an experience, and that ultimately all is well. And that was from them.
Oh, thank you, Sanaya, and thank you. That was really a great explanation, and I believe it completely. I feel it as you're saying it, and so thank you, and thank you for demonstrating what that shift is like to go from.
It takes training. It does. It takes training and trust, total trust. When you come to truly know we do not die, death is a tragedy here within the story. The way we suffered when my stepdaughter died, that's horrendous. I wouldn't put that on anybody, yet it happens to all of us, some kind of death in the family eventually. But once you come to know we go on and we will meet again and we can converse with them now, it truly changes everything.
So fabulous, Suzanne. This is just, I could talk to you forever, and I look forward to many more times getting to speak with you. And I just want everyone to know, please, this is her birthday of the book, The Awakened Way. You can go to theawakenedway.org and find the book. You can go to Suzanne's website, which we're putting in all of the notes, SuzanneGiesemann.com. You can go to the Messages of the Hope podcast, which is youtube.com/Suzanne Giesemann/podcast. So is there anything else that you want to share with us as a final message? And
Yes. It's one of the keys that I've learned along the way, that many people feel to themselves, I'm broken, I'm wounded, I'm a victim. Within the story, you may feel that way. But when you come to understand the nature of the soul, the greatest message I can share with everybody is you are already whole and complete. There is nothing wrong with your soul. Bring soul awareness into your current story, and you will know that and know why you are so very loved.
Thank you, Suzanne. That was beautiful, as has been this entire experience of being with you. Not just the words, but I feel the energy and the love that you transmit in being here. And I always end every podcast with a quote from our guest. And little did I know you were going to end with saying that, because this is what the quote is that I chose to share with everybody from you, Suzanne. At the human level, you may be wounded and hurting, but at your deepest, most essential level, you are whole and complete. This is because you are not only human, you are also a soul, and your soul is perfectly fine. So thank you for hearing it from you live and then having it be the quote that I wanted to share.
It's a God wink for me, because I always end differently. And I rarely have said that one at the end. And my guides, I wish you could hear them laughing. It's just to show we know.
Well, we thank you, and we thank the guides. And I thank everyone here today for listening. I hope that you are feeling inspired and uplifted. I don't know how you could not feel that from being here today with Suzanne. And may you be feeling more in the miracle zone after our time together. And if you enjoyed this episode, of course, we appreciate your 5-star ratings and your reviews and sharing this Miracle Zone love with your friends and family. And if you're ready to live more in the Miracle Zone, you can take our 2-minute quiz to find out what your miracle superpower is. You just go to miraclezonequiz.com. And remember that your life of miracles is waiting for you. It is your birthright. and may you live more each day in the miracle zone.